Do you think you're ever gonna figure it out?
What's the rush?
Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in Ms. Marvel Episode 4, Seeing Red. The episode is based heavily on the comics when Kamala visits Pakistan and wants to get in touch with her roots. Now, in the comics and in the show, Kamala can't handle the spicy food. And if you would like to read this issue, you can scan the QR code right here. The episode is about Kamala finding answers to the ancient mysteries about her origin, but also it's about when her mother starts to reckon with her own identity and why she wanted to leave Pakistan to begin with, just as her mother journeyed to Pakistan during the partition. So there is an ongoing theme here of Pakistani women going on journeys to discover their own identities. And this episode ends with Kamala journeying into the past to discover who she really is and to find her new superhero identity, but more on that in a bit. The song playing over the Marvel credits is Summer Nights by Raw Gender featuring Wise Child. Now the song refers to the line that Nani says later in the episode, describing the hot summer night she left India during the partition.
It was the middle of partition. And it was a hot summer night.
First, I have to throw this out there.
Please sit down.
I want to use my platform here to do some good and send a helpful message to the world. Stop standing up when the plane lands. It gets you nowhere. We're all going to leave the plane at the same time. It does you no good to get up right away. It's just annoying and you get in the way of the aisle. Thank you. When Kamala compliments her Nani's jewelry, she says,
They're very old, but you can have them.
which is very generous, but it's also the attitude that put the bangle in Kamala's hands to begin with. As they drive through Karachi, we see this mural, and this is Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan. And then they drive beneath a sign that reads Karachi, City of Lights, a nod to the Noor, the dimension of light that Kamala is tapping into. So this is a way of saying that by coming to the City of Lights, she will be able to become more in touch with the light that is within herself from the Noor dimension. And once again, the opening titles are a lot of fun. We see a collage where there is an infinity symbol painted over Kamala's face like a mask, perhaps a nod to the infinity stones, the possible source of the bangle's power. The other credits are over locations in Karachi or Pakistan. Some of them are written in Urdu, and this one is even on some naan bread. And their golden is named Magnum, I'm assuming after P.I.
Person, how do you spot so many of these Easter eggs?
Well, Doug, when I watch these episodes, I give myself the big screen experience with my Cosmos 4K laser projector from Nebula. They're the sponsor of this video. This projector is amazing. It's ultra bright, up to 2400 ISO lumens, so it even works in the daytime. But mostly I love that it's so light and portable. I've been taking advantage of the summer weather, using it for backyard movie nights, or you can do outdoor game nights with your friends.
How can it be so bright?
Well, because it uses laser technology. See, most projectors broadcast with white light, but this one projects the colors you're actually watching. Plus, it's way cheaper than a laser TV, which can cost anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000. And the Cosmos 1080p version offers a better picture than other HD projectors because it works with the same laser technology. And they both feature Dolby Digital Plus audio. I love this projector, and it's a must-have for movie fans. Best of all, you can download more than 7,000 apps, including Disney Plus. So you can rewatch Endgame on the big screen without leaving your backyard. So we've got a great deal for you. Click our link in the description to get a huge discount on this great 4K Cosmos laser projector. Back to the Easter eggs. Kamala, totally jet-lagged, wanders into her Nani's art studio. She's collected clippings about the partition and has painted refugees. And later on, we find out that, like her granddaughter, she is also trying to reckon with her own past. Anytime people are forced from their homes, it creates a disconnection with the self that reverberates throughout the generations. Nani was displaced, which led to Kamala's mother feeling out of place, so she has to go to America, and Kamala feels settled in America, but as she puts it in Ms. Marvel issue 12, in Jersey, I stick out because I'm too Pakistani. Here, I stick out because I'm too American. They even mention the popular but sometimes polarizing term ABCD, or American-born confused Daisy. It's most often used to describe second or later generation South Asian Americans who typically struggle to balance values and traditions taught at home with the attitudes and practices that are more conducive to the culture of the US. Now, I've never been to Pakistan, but I have been to India, and there are some traits that these Daisy cultures share. The bike taxis, the haggling, but mostly the way this guy gives directions.
One more left, and then right, little bit right, okay? And then go around that donkey cart.
Also, if you haven't tasted pani puri before, one of the best snacks ever. So, as Kamala is discovering the source of her powers, she is also slowly discovering her own roots and identity. As this happens, she is slowly moving away from the Captain Marvel cosplay costume and forging her own superhero costume. She wears the airbrushed mask that Bruno made her, but later she obtains a coatee which is more similar to her suit in the comics, which is based on more traditional Pakistani garments. This transition also happens in the comics, where she began shape-shifting to look like Carol Danvers, but then created her own suit. At the train station, she sees this mural of Ant-Man, who has to probably be her second favorite hero. She learned about the Endgame battle by listening to Scott's podcast, and she's doodled him before. Here we see him growing, and the caption reads, "You can start small and still be larger than life," which you could also apply to Kamala's journey throughout the show. According to Z on Twitter, the Urdu writing here reads, "As powerful as an ant," and the artist is credited as Sarah Hussein after Adrian Alfana, who is an artist on the Ms. Marvel comics. And we also see that this is part 4 of the Avengers Karachi series. Hopefully we get to see some of the others pop up in the show. Kamala fights Chemo from the Red Daggers, and in keeping with the MCU heroes she loves, she makes references to pop culture during the fight.
Get lost, Squidward.
Where'd you learn to jump like that, Ninja Turtles?
Let her go, Grimace.
Where'd you learn yours, huh? Donkey Kong?
And of course, the scene ends with,
Come with me if you want to live.
which is from this.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
I'm sorry, I meant this.
Come with me if you want to live.
In the comics, Red Dagger is a Pakistani vigilante that she crosses paths with while she's in Karachi. And then she's annoyed when he becomes an exchange student at her school. Oh, and this line
How do you know I'm not Canadian?
is an in-joke because Aman Vellani actually is Canadian. And I love the secret base. The MCU needs more secret bases.
Where's your secret headquarters trigger? Is this it?
No, wait!
In the show, the Red Dagger is actually a mantle that many people can carry, one of whom is Waleed, played by famous Bollywood actor and director Farhan Akhtar. When the Red Daggers explain the jinn, they say,
Thor landed in the Himalayan mountains. He too would have been called a jinn.
So I guess what they're saying here is that the legend of the Jinn has been around for longer than Najma and the other villains on this show. But since they appeared in the Himalayas, they were given the name Jinn, like how the Asgardians appeared in Norway and they were called gods. In the last episode, Yusuf Khan reads in the photograph that they're supernatural beings of pre-Islamic folklore and that their concept spans over different cultures. Then we learn some very interesting facts about the Noor dimension.
Aisha's home. It's connected to our world but hidden.
So the Noor dimension is sounding more and more like Ta Lo from Shang-Chi, and the people there are beings of light who have taken on human form while they're on Earth.
How does this fit into the multiverse?
Well, I'm presuming that the light dimension is part of the multiverse, like the other freaky dimensions that we saw in Doctor Strange.
Who are you in this vast multiverse?
But speaking of Doctor Strange, remember in that movie we saw the dark dimension, which could be the counterpoint to the light dimension of the Clandestine. In fact, this episode ends with tears in reality, much like the tears we see Clea opening to the dark dimension at the end of Multiverse of Madness. So maybe the dark and light dimensions are actually overlaying our own dimension, and these worlds coexist in every universe throughout the multiverse. It could even be that the bangle and the 10 rings are gateways to access these dimensions, which would explain why Wen Wu was able to live for centuries. Much like the Ancient One, he was drawing energy from other dimensions, except in his case, it might have been the light dimension, whereas the Ancient One drew power from the dark dimension. And you know what? We actually saw Kamala enter the parallel Noor dimension in the very first episode, here. Actually, speaking of Multiverse of Madness, look what happens when the light dimension butts up against our dimension.
They'll unleash their world onto us until there's nothing left of it.
That sounds an awful lot like the incursions described in Multiverse of Madness.
An incursion occurs when the boundary between two universes erodes and they collide, destroying one or both entirely.
And we finally get an interpretation of the Bangle's message.
It says what you seek is seeking you.
Now what's interesting is that this writing is new to the Bangle. It appeared to be a message for Kamala. So this could be a way for the people of the Noor to communicate with one of their own. Or maybe it's Aisha's spirit trapped inside the Bangle, making it a metaphor for how Kamala is now carrying her within her heart. Then we shift gears to the Department of Damage Control's Supermax prison that actually we saw in the She-Hulk trailer. This is where Emil Blonsky, aka the Abomination, is being kept. Kamala and the other clandestine attack steal one of the repulsor cannons designed by Tony Stark for the Department of Damage Control that he helped to found. And this guard is a really fun cameo from the Iron Man movies. This is your mom. Kind of weird that they only posted like one guard on them, but okay, whatever, COVID restrictions. Then Nani has a talk with Kamala on the roof overlooking kites flying across the city. This is such a neat nod to the region's culture, where kite racing and kite fighting are a very long tradition. And I freaking love how this show visualizes text messages and the kites spell out the text to chemo. This could be a visualization of Kamala's hopeful and idealistic view returning from the grounded events that happened back in episode 3. So then Kamala and her grandmother have this very touching conversation about displacement and identity, which of course connects back to their shared history of the Jinn, who are also displaced from their home. The best of this is when her grandmother tells her that searching for your identity is gratifying. It's not the end, it's the journey.
Do you think you're ever gonna figure it out?
But what's the rush?
This scene neatly sets up Kamala learning about her powers and how they help her channel the Noor. Except in this case, the Noor also represents the past, the legacy of her family, so her heritage empowers her. Literally. Then the Clandestine attack the Red Daggers. And by the way, the Clandestine are a pretty obscure team of Marvel villains from the 90s, and one of their members is a Jinn. Zephyr44 on Twitter noticed that the weapon Najma fights Waleed with is called a Maduvi, and is one of the weapons used in Silambam, which is a Tamil martial arts form. It's typically made from deer horns. Very cool. So this season began with Kamala taking her driver's ed test, where she wore aviator glasses so she could feel like Carol Danvers. But here she wears her own mask, forging her own identity. Just like in the driver's ed test, she accidentally reverses at first, but then she learns from her mistakes and puts the truck into first gear. Her mentor figure dies in front of her. Very New Hope. And then Najma stabs the bangle with a knife that I am assuming has some connection to her dimension. Then this rips open a hole in space and time, sending Kamala back into the past to the partition. Now at first I thought this was just a vision she was having, like the train. But now I'm starting to think that Kamala is actually in the past.
Time travel!
I see. So she time traveled, which means she will now create a new universe, like we learned in Loki and Avengers Endgame.
Well, I'm not so sure that's what's about to happen. Remember how Kamala's Nani found her father.
I somehow got separated from my father, until a trail of stars appeared and took me right back into his arms.
And in the past, I guess that Aisha would have activated this trail of stars. But the bangle never worked like this for her.
But we can't access its full potential in this dimension. But maybe because you're from here, you can.
So it seems like Kamala will be the one to create this trail of stars, to bring Nani to the train, which in turn will allow Kamala to be born decades later. This would not create a branching universe, because it's part of the closed loop time travel theory. This is similar to what we see in movies like Interstellar, where future humans constructed a tesseract to create themselves in the future. And I'm wondering if this is possible because the Jinn dimension exists directly alongside our own. Since the bangle was of this other dimension, then time travel is a closed loop and does not create a branching timeline. So, next episode hopefully we'll have some answers as Kamala comes to understand her past and take an active part in shaping her future by rescuing her Nani. And the credits are now set in Karachi instead of Jersey City, and there's cool little changes like the traffic light becoming a Pakistani flag instead of the Ms. Marvel lightning bolt, and Kamala sitting on a swing hanging from the moon instead of off the street light overlooking Manhattan. This is also a neat metaphor for the cosmic journey that is ahead of her. Well, that's all the Easter eggs we found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below, or you could @ me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.